What would you do if, right in the middle of a family dinner, your granddaughter secretly slipped you a note that said, "Grandma, pretend you're sick and get out of here immediately"? I had no idea what was about to happen next, but trust me, you won't believe the real reason until the very end. It was one of those Sunday evenings that felt like a warm hug. The kind where the house is filled with the comforting aroma of roast beef and rosemary potatoes, and the clatter of dishes is drowned out by the laughter and chatter of family. I'd spent the afternoon fussing over the gravy, making sure it was just the right consistency, thick enough to coat the back of a spoon, but not so thick it could be mistaken for wallpaper paste. The grandkids were already bickering over who got the last biscuit, and my son-in-law was telling the same corny joke he'd told at every family dinner since 2003. I was finally sitting down, fork in hand, ready to enjoy a rare moment of peace at the head of the table. That's when it happened. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emma, my 12-year-old granddaughter, sidle up to me with the kind of stealth that would make a cat burglar jealous. She slid a folded piece of paper onto my plate, right between the mashed potatoes and the green beans. Now, Emma's always had a flair for the dramatic. Just last week, she tried to convince me that our old tabby, Mr. Whiskers, could talk. She even went so far as to record herself meowing into my phone and play it back when I wasn't looking. But this was different. There was no mischievous glint in her eye, no barely suppressed giggle. Instead, she looked at me with a seriousness that seemed far too grown up for her freckled face. I picked up the note, half expecting a doodle of a unicorn or maybe a secret request for an extra scoop of ice cream after dinner. But as I unfolded the paper, my heart did a little somersault. In Emma's neat, looping handwriting, it read, "Grandma, pretend you're sick and get out of here immediately." For a moment, I just stared at the words, my mind racing. Was this some new game she'd invented? Was she playing spy again, like she did last summer when she made me wear sunglasses indoors and answer to the codename Blueberry? Or, heaven forbid, was there something actually wrong? I glanced up at Emma, searching her face for a clue. She met my gaze, her eyes wide and earnest, and gave the tiniest shake of her head. No smile, no wink, just a look that said, "Trust me." Now, let me tell you, I've lived long enough to know that when a child looks at you like that, you pay attention. My mind started spinning with possibilities. Was there a gas leak? Had she seen something outside? Was this some elaborate setup for a TikTok video? I tried to remember if I'd seen any of the other grandkids fiddling with their phones under the table. But no, this felt different. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something was just a little bit off. I looked around the table, trying to spot anything unusual. My daughter was pouring herself another glass of iced tea, chatting with her husband about the neighbor's new fence. My son was helping the twins cut their meat, his face flushed from the heat of the kitchen. Everything seemed perfectly normal, but that note was burning a hole in my hand. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I've always prided myself on being the calm one in a crisis. When the kitchen caught fire back in '92, I was the one who grabbed the fire extinguisher and put it out before the fire department even arrived. When my husband had his heart scare, I was the one who kept everyone calm and got him to the hospital in record time. But this was different. This was my granddaughter, and she was asking me to trust her, so I did what any self-respecting grandma would do. I put on my best, sick face, clutching my stomach and letting out a low groan. "Oh dear," I said, my voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "I'm not feeling so well. I think I need to lie down for a bit." The room went quiet, all eyes turning to me. My daughter-in-law looked up, concern etched on her face. "Are you all right, Mom?" she asked, setting down her fork. Emma was by my side in an instant, her hand slipping into mine. "I'll help Grandma," she said, her voice steady but her grip tight. She led me away from the table, her small frame surprisingly strong as she guided me down the hallway. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, a mixture of worry and confusion following us out of the dining room. As soon as we were out of sight, Emma pulled me into the laundry room and closed the door behind us. My heart was pounding, 1,000 questions swirling in my mind. What on earth was going on? Was this all just a misunderstanding? Or was there something I needed to be afraid of? I looked down at Emma, her face pale but determined, and realized that whatever was happening, we were in it together. And that's how a perfectly ordinary Sunday dinner turned into the most unforgettable night of my life. One that would test my trust, my courage, and the unbreakable bond between a grandmother and her granddaughter. Now, let me ask you, what would you do if your 12-year-old granddaughter, who's usually more interested in TikTok dances and doodling cats in the margins of her homework, suddenly handed you a note at dinner telling you to pretend you're sick and leave immediately? Ignore it and risk looking like a fool, or trust your gut and your granddaughter and play along? I'll admit, for a split second, I considered just brushing it off. Maybe she was bored, or maybe this was some elaborate prank. But then I remembered the look in her eyes, wide, serious, and just a little bit scared. Emma's always had a vivid imagination, but she's never been one to cry wolf. Well, except for that time she tried to convince me the neighbor's dog was actually a government spy. But that's a story for another day. So I decided to trust her. After all, what's the worst that could happen? I'd look a little silly, maybe get teased by the family for being dramatic, but if there was even a sliver of a chance that something was wrong, I wasn't about to ignore it. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and clutched my stomach like I'd just eaten a bad oyster. I let out a groan that would have made Meryl Streep proud. "Oh dear," I said, my voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "I'm not feeling well. I think I need to lie down for a bit." The room fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop, or, more likely in our house, a fork clatter to the floor. My daughter-in-law, always the first to jump into action, looked up from her plate, concern etched across her face. "Do you need to lie down, Mom?" she asked, already half out of her chair. My son paused mid-bite, his fork hovering in the air, and the grandkids stopped their bickering, all eyes on me. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt for worrying them. But Emma's hand slipped into mine under the table, her grip surprisingly strong for such a small hand. Before anyone else could react, Emma jumped up, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. "I'll help Grandma," she announced, her voice steady and confident. She was at my side in an instant, guiding me away from the table with a sense of urgency that made my heart race. I could feel the family's eyes following us as we made our way down the hallway, their voices fading behind us. I caught snippets of concern. Should we call the doctor? Maybe it's her blood sugar? But Emma didn't slow down. She led me straight past the guest room, past the bathroom, and right into the laundry room at the end of the hall. Now let me tell you, the laundry room is not exactly the place you'd expect to find yourself in the middle of a family dinner. It's cramped, cluttered with baskets of mismatched socks and the faint scent of lavender dryer sheets. But in that moment, it felt like the safest place in the world. Emma closed the door behind us and leaned against it, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. I sat down on the edge of the washing machine, my heart pounding in my chest. "Emma, sweetheart, what's going on?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. I could see she was scared, but she was also determined. She glanced at the door, then back at me, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and resolve. "Grandma, I know this sounds crazy, but I heard something weird," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Uncle Mike was on the phone earlier, and he was talking about hiding something in your purse during dinner. He sounded, I don't know, sneaky. I didn't want to scare you in front of everyone, but I thought we should get out of there, just in case." I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. "Uncle Mike? The same Uncle Mike who once tried to deep-fry a turkey in the garage and nearly set his eyebrows on fire? The same man who still calls me every year on my birthday to sing happy birthday in his best Elvis impression?" I couldn't imagine him doing anything truly sinister, but Emma's worry was real, and that was enough for me. I reached out and squeezed her hand, trying to reassure her. "You did the right thing, honey," I said softly. "I'm proud of you for looking out for me." She managed a small smile, but I could see she was still on edge. We sat there for a few minutes, listening to the muffled sounds of the family in the dining room. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this all just a misunderstanding? Was Mike planning some kind of surprise? Or was there something more serious going on? I tried to remember if I'd noticed anything odd about his behavior that evening, but nothing came to mind. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma's instincts were right. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut and your granddaughter. As we waited, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. Here I was, hiding in the laundry room with a 12-year-old, all because of a mysterious note and a suspicious phone call. Life certainly has a way of keeping you on your toes, doesn't it? I glanced at Emma, her face set with determination, and felt a surge of pride. No matter what happened next, I knew we'd face it together. And so, in that cramped little laundry room, surrounded by the hum of the dryer and the scent of clean laundry, I realized that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust the people you love, even if it means looking a little silly in the process. 15 minutes can feel like an eternity when you're hiding in a laundry room, especially with your heart pounding so loudly you're sure the whole house can hear it. The hum of the dryer and the faint scent of fabric softener did little to calm my nerves. I sat perched on the edge of the washing machine, knees pressed together, hands gripping the cool metal as if it might anchor me to reality. Emma, my brave little co-conspirator, was crouched by the door, peeking through the crack with the intensity of a seasoned detective. I could see the worry etched on her face, and I wanted nothing more than to wrap her in a big, reassuring hug. But I knew she needed to feel in control, so I waited, letting her take the lead. "Emma, what's going on?" I finally whispered, my voice barely audible over the rhythmic thump of the dryer. She glanced back at me, her eyes wide and serious, and for a moment I saw a flash of the little girl who used to run to me with scraped knees and wild stories about dragons in the backyard. But tonight she was all business. She leaned in close, her voice trembling just a bit. "Grandma, I overheard Uncle Mike on the phone before dinner. He was in the hallway and he didn't know I was there. He said something about hiding it in your purse during dinner. He sounded weird, not like himself. I didn't want to scare you in front of everyone, but I thought we should get out of there, just in case." I blinked, trying to process her words. Uncle Mike, my lovable, goofy son, was always up to something, usually harmless, sometimes hilarious, occasionally disastrous. He was the family's resident prankster, the one who once replaced the sugar with salt on April Fool's Day and nearly ruined my famous lemon meringue pie. But this was new. Hiding something in my purse? And sounding weird? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more outlandish than the last. Was it a prank? A surprise? Or, my heart skipped a beat, something more serious? I tried to recall anything unusual about Mike's behavior that evening. He'd been a little fidgety, sure, but that wasn't exactly out of character. He'd spent a lot of time in the kitchen, fussing over the gravy and sneaking bites of roast when he thought no one was looking. But nothing that screamed secret mission. Still, Emma's concern was real, and I couldn't ignore it. "Did you hear anything else?" I asked, keeping my voice steady for her sake. Emma shook her head, her ponytail swishing. "Just that. He said, I'll slip it in during dinner. She'll never see it coming." Then he laughed, but not like he usually does. It was, I don't know, sneaky. I let out a slow breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Mike was planning a surprise for my birthday, or maybe he'd found some silly trinket he thought I'd like. But the uncertainty gnawed at me. I glanced at my purse, sitting innocently on the laundry room counter, and felt a shiver run down my spine. What if it was something dangerous? What if Emma had saved me from some terrible fate? The minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last. I could hear the muffled sounds of the family in the dining room, laughter, clinking silverware, the occasional burst of conversation. I wondered what they were thinking. Were they worried about me? Did they suspect something was wrong? Or were they just enjoying the rare peace and quiet that came with my absence? Emma fidgeted, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. "Do you think we should check your purse?" she whispered. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to march right back into the dining room and demand an explanation from Mike. But another part, the part that remembered all the times Emma's instincts had been right, told me to be cautious. "Let's wait a little longer," I said softly. "If Mike really did put something in there, we don't want to make a scene." "We'll check when everyone's distracted." Emma nodded, her jaw set with determination. I marveled at her courage. She was just a child, but in that moment, she was my protector, my partner in this strange little adventure. I reached over and squeezed her hand, grateful for her quick thinking and fierce loyalty. Finally, after what felt like hours, the voices in the dining room grew louder. I heard chairs scraping, footsteps approaching. My daughter's voice floated down the hallway. Mom, are you okay? Panic fluttered in my chest, but I forced a smile as the door creaked open. We're fine. Just needed a little girl talk, I said, hoping my voice sounded more confident than I felt. Emma shot me a reassuring glance, then slipped out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I took a deep breath and reached for my purse, my hands trembling. I unzipped it slowly, half expecting something to jump out at me. But inside, nestled between my wallet and a half-empty pack of mints, was a small, neatly wrapped box. My heart skipped a beat. I turned it over in my hands, searching for a clue. There was a note taped to the top, written in Mike's unmistakable scrawl. For Mom, open when you're alone. Relief flooded through me, mingled with a touch of embarrassment. I should have known. Mike, for all his antics, had a soft spot for surprises. I unwrapped the box, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes as I realized what it was. A delicate silver locket, engraved with the words, "Family is everything." Inside was a tiny photo of Emma and me, taken last summer at the lake. I laughed, the tension melting away, and hugged my purse to my chest. Emma had been right to trust her instincts, and I'd been right to trust her. In that moment, surrounded by mismatched socks and the scent of fabric softener, I realized that sometimes the greatest adventures come from the smallest acts of love and courage. And as I walked back to the dining room, locket in hand, I knew this was a story we'd be telling for years to come. We waited in that little laundry room, nerves jangling and hearts pounding, for what felt like an eternity. The hum of the dryer and the faint scent of fabric softener did little to calm the storm of questions swirling in my mind. Emma sat beside me, her knees pulled up to her chest, chewing her lip in that way she does when she's worried. I tried to keep my own anxiety in check, but I'll admit, my imagination was running wild. What if there really was something dangerous in my purse? What if Mike had gotten himself mixed up in something he shouldn't have? I could almost hear my mother's voice in my head. You always did have a flair for the dramatic, Margaret. Well, tonight, it seemed the apple hadn't fallen far from the tree, just as I was about to suggest we sneak out the back door and make a run for it, because, let's be honest, I was ready for anything at that point. The laundry room door creaked open. In stepped my daughter, Susan, her brow furrowed with concern. Mom? Emma? Are you two all right? You've been gone a while. We were starting to worry. Emma and I exchanged a quick glance, and I could see the relief in her eyes. She hopped off the dryer and ran to her mother, wrapping her arms around her waist. We're okay, Mom. I thought something was wrong. Susan looked at me, her eyes searching for an explanation. I gave her a reassuring smile, though I'm sure it looked more like a grimace. Everything's fine, sweetheart, I said, patting Emma's back. Just a little misunderstanding, that's all. I could see Susan wasn't entirely convinced, but before she could press further, we heard footsteps in the hallway. In came Mike, looking sheepish and a little confused, holding my purse in one hand and a sheepish grin on his face. Hey, Mom, I was just coming to check on you. You left your purse at the table, he said, holding it out to me. I took it, my hands trembling just a bit, and gave him a long, searching look. Mike, is there something you want to tell me? I asked, my voice gentle but firm. He blinked, then his face broke into a wide, goofy grin. Oh, right! I almost forgot. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, which he tucked into my purse with a flourish. Happy early birthday, Mom. I wanted to surprise you at dinner, but I guess I got a little carried away with the whole secret agent routine. He winked at Emma, who stared at him in disbelief. I opened the purse and pulled out the envelope, my hands still shaking. Inside were 2 glossy tickets, front row seats to a Broadway show I'd been talking about for months. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I couldn't speak. Emma peered over my shoulder, her eyes wide. Wait, that's what you were hiding? She asked, her voice a mixture of relief and exasperation. Mike laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I wanted it to be a big surprise. I even called the box office to make sure everything was perfect. I guess I got a little too into the whole Mission Impossible thing. He looked at Emma, his eyes softening. I'm sorry if I scared you, kiddo. I just wanted to do something special for Grandma. The tension that had been building all evening melted away in an instant. I started to laugh, a deep belly laugh that shook my whole body. Emma joined in, her giggles bubbling up until we were both doubled over, tears streaming down our faces. Even Susan and Mike couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. There we were, 4 generations of family, crammed into a laundry room, laughing until our sides hurt over a case of mistaken espionage and a pair of Broadway tickets. When we finally caught our breath, I pulled Emma into a tight hug. You did the right thing, sweetheart, I whispered in her ear. You trusted your instincts and looked out for me. I couldn't be prouder. She squeezed me back, her arms warm and strong around my waist. I just didn't want anything bad to happen to you, Grandma, she said, her voice muffled against my sweater. I looked around at my family, Susan still shaking her head in disbelief, Mike grinning from ear to ear, and Emma, my brave, loyal granddaughter, and felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. Not just for the tickets, though I was certainly excited about the show, but for the love and care that bound us all together. Even in the midst of confusion and a little bit of chaos, we'd found our way back to each other, stronger and closer than ever. As we made our way back to the dining room, the rest of the family greeted us with curious looks and a few raised eyebrows. I waved the tickets in the air, announcing the surprise, and the room erupted in cheers and applause. Mike took a dramatic bow, and Emma beamed with pride. The rest of the evening was filled with laughter and stories, everyone taking turns teasing. Mike about his secret agent antics, and Emma about her quick thinking. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the tickets tucked safely in my nightstand and Emma's note folded neatly beside them, I couldn't help but smile. Life has a funny way of keeping us on our toes, doesn't it? One minute you're enjoying a quiet family dinner. The next, you're embroiled in a mystery worthy of a detective novel. But through it all, it's the love and laughter we share that make it all worthwhile. So, if you ever find yourself in a laundry room, clutching your purse and wondering what on earth is going on, just remember, sometimes the best surprises come, wrapped in a little bit of drama and a whole lot of love. So, ladies, next time your grandkids pass you a mysterious note, maybe play along. You never know what adventure or Broadway show might be waiting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit subscribe for more real-life tales, laughter, and a little bit of family chaos. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below.